Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Francisca, and in today's video we are going to be learning how to make a jumpsuit. This channel is all about building your sewing skills, and of course you should be confident in whatever you are making if you are on this channel. In today's video I'll be showing you how to make a jumpsuit pattern. We'll be making a jumpsuit pattern from a basic bodice block and a trouser block. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but this is your ready-made jumpsuit pattern. I'm going to show you how you can do that. It's not your regular combining trouser and bodies. No, there are some things that you need to do to tweak to ensure that you come out with a fitted jumpsuit, to come out with a jumpsuit that can allow you to raise your arm properly and will not, ride into your crotch area. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. Please click the subscribe button, click the bell so you get updates when I post new videos. And of course, let's dive into our tutorial. In order to draft your jumpsuit pattern, you are going to need either your trouser pattern or your shorts pattern, whichever one you have, okay? And then you're going to be needing your basic bodice pattern. So I'm going to keep my basic bodice pattern aside. I'm using my shorts pattern for this. If you don't know how to draft shorts or trouser, I have the tutorials already. I will link it up in my description box. I decided to use shorts because it was more straightforward. The pattern tutorial is more straightforward if you want to go ahead and use that, okay? So right here is my front shorts pattern. Right here is my back shorts pattern. These patterns have a ½ inch seam allowance at the waist area, at the inseam area, the crotch area, and the outseam area, which is a side seam, okay, for both the front and the back. So I've placed it on this fresh pattern paper that you can see here, and then what I did was to extend from the crotch all the way down. I want the bottom of this jumpsuit that I want to make, the jumpsuit pattern, to be a wide leg pattern, okay? And then at the side seam area, I just straightened it downwards from the thigh, not from the hip, neither from the crotch, from the thigh, because I want the hip area to actually be a little fitted, okay? I repeated the same thing for the back, just followed the crotch, I just followed the inseam leg like this, straight down, followed the out seam from the thigh now, okay, not from the edge of the pattern, from the thigh straight down. And this is what we have right here. So guys, the next thing we want to do is to do our crotch extension. Now, for our shorts or trouser pattern, basically we only have crotch extension for the back, and mine here is 2.5. So what I'm going to do is to fold that 2.5 inwards like this, so that we can have a straight waist for the back, okay? So did you see that? I folded it inwards so we can have a straight waist. And this straight waist that I have here is corresponding to the edge of my pattern paper. Do you understand that explanation? So we're going to use our pattern like this. Remember I said we have ½ inch seam allowance at the waist, both front and back. So we need to take that into consideration. Now, before I go ahead and remove my pattern paper, after making sure that the folded edge corresponds here, okay, so you can see how I folded it. Just the crotch extension, 2.5, and I made sure that everything laid flat till it got to this edge here. So what I'm going to do right now before I lift up my patterns is to trace out, this curve here, the inseam leg all the way up to the crotch. Trace out my crotch area, trace out the remaining part here. I'm going to do the same thing for the front. Trace out the inseam leg, the crotch, trace out the side seam area, okay, the remaining side seam area. Please, I want to quickly mention that my shorts pattern has a zipper fly extension, okay? Can you see? So we don't need this for this jumpsuit pattern. That was why I folded it inwards, and then I traced the crotch curve. So like I said, I'll trace out what I need to trace out and then remove my patterns. And after tracing out the rest of my shorts pattern, I'll go on to remove it. And when I remove it, this is what our trouser pattern looks like, okay? Here is the front, okay? And then here is the back. Now, the next thing I want to do is to go on to do another crotch extension. Remember that I removed the previous one that I did here. What I want to do is to re-add it back. Now, the crotch extension that we are doing for this pattern is inclusive of the front and the back. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? The crotch extension that I'm doing is inclusive for both the front and the back. And this crotch extension will cut across, from the crotch to the side seam for the back, from the crotch to the side seam for the front. Okay, so I hope we got that. For us to create our extension, what I've done was to attach fresh pieces of paper at the waist area of the front and also for the back. So I'm going to be starting with the back. I will be adding 3 inches for my extension, okay? Remember I have seam allowance there. I'm going to add 3 inches, so I'll mark that 3 inches. You can go between 3 inches and 3.5, okay? So those ones are enough to give you that effect where your jumpsuit will not be going inside your crotch when you wear your jumpsuit, and then you'll be able to raise your arm. So that is why we are doing this extension. I'll come right here again from the edge of the paper, okay, the edge of this one here, our waist. I'm going to add 3 inches. So did you see that? So I'll go on to connect it like this. Then for this one, for the crotch at the back, I'm just going to follow the curve at the crotch line, okay? The front crotch is actually straight, the back crotch is sort of slanted. So I'm just going to follow the curve right there, okay? So I follow it like that. Still check that it is 3 inches from that point, from the edge of the paper here, before we tape it down, and then I'll go on to join it like so. Okay, so there was no need for me to add seam allowance here because I already have half an inch seam allowance at the waist area on this pattern. Then I'll come to the front. I'll do the same thing, okay? Mark 3 inches from the edge of the paper, you know, mark 3 inches here, okay? Come right here as well, mark 3 inches, and then I'll go on to join it like so. So you want to make sure that whatever it is that you have here, your initial waist trouser, okay, you want to make sure that it's the same measurement that you have here, okay? So now I can go on to join it like so, and at the top as well. So guys, this is what we have for the trouser part of our jumpsuit. You actually need to elongate the crotch and also elongate the side seam area with the same amount that you used to elongate the crotch. So now that we have this all done, what I'm going to do right now is to cut out my trouser pattern out, okay, for both the front and the back. This trouser pattern has a 2-inch seam allowance at the bottom included. So we're going to go ahead and cut this out. So guys, after cutting my front and back pattern, this is what I have. Then I'm going to grab my basic bodice now. My basic bodice pattern doesn't have seam allowance at the side seam, okay? So I need to take note of that. And because I have seam allowance at my crotch, you can see that the center front will not blend. So by the time I now sew my crotch for the front by a half an inch allowance, you would see that it would now match with the center front, okay, if I should sew by half an inch. And then of course I still need to add half an inch seam allowance at the side seam of my bodice in order for it to match with the side seam of my trouser. I hope that makes sense for the front. So for the back now, my center back has a zipper allowance of half an inch. So that is why I placed it edge to edge with the back crotch, as you can see here. The seam allowance at the back crotch is what I will use as zipper allowance. So my zipper will extend from the back here into the crotch. Okay, so does that make sense? And like I said, I've not added half an inch for my side seam allowance. That is why the bodice is off by a half an inch. So if I should add that half an inch here, it will blend with, you know, my side seam of my trouser, okay? The reason why I did not mark that allowance for my trouser is because if you go with your normal dart for trouser, sew it, go with your normal dart for blouse, sew it. By the time you are joining it together, it may not blend, okay? So what I usually do for mine is to use whatever I have on my bodice, okay? I use whatever I have on my bodice, and the position where it is, I draft it on my trouser. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm going to do in order for me to mark my darts for my trouser is to match my front pattern. This is the front, so I need to make sure it is half an inch away from the trouser crotch, okay? And then what I'm going to do is to just mark the points where the dart is, but I'll be marking it on my trouser. So I mark it here, I mark it here, I mark it here, okay? So the distance between my crotch and this point, I'll measure it. That's the center point now. I'll measure it. I have 4 inches. I'll come right down, mark that 4 inches, okay? And then I'll be going with a dart length here of 7. The reason why I'm going with 7, if you remember, I added 3 inches extra, and for my own darts for trouser, I usually go with about 4 inches. So if we're adding 3 inches plus 4 inches, that will just make it 7, okay? So don't be surprised if the dart is long. It's because of that extension that I did there. And then I'll go on to connect it like so. Okay, connect it like this, and you can see that it is matching well. So I'm going to repeat the same thing for the back. I have not marked the dart for my own back, so I'll just use the front to do it. My zipper allowance for my bodice is 1/2 inch. Remember I said I'm using the front, so I just place it 1/2 inch away from the back crotch. Okay, I place it like that. Mark the dart points here, here, and here. So I hope you understand what I'm doing. Now I'm going to make sure that whatever center line I'm marking is parallel to the crotch curve here. That's very, very important. So I'll just go on to draw a straight line like so. Mark my dart of, so I mark 7 inches here, and then I'm going to connect it to this point here, okay? So I'll just connect it like this, and then I have my back trouser dart. So that's it guys for our jumpsuit pattern. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, kindly give us a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, turn on the bell so you get updates when I post new videos, and I'm going to be seeing you guys in my next tutorial, okay? Bye!